Thank you, Jim. My colleague as head of VISTA when I was at the Corporation for National Service. Mimi Major, the key board member of the Friends of VISTA, is here. So many friends are here who have been part of this, 21st Century Democrats. They say, lift your eyes unto the hills. I want to thank IBEW for giving us this wonderful place where we can lift our eyes up even beyond the hills. And Tom Harkin isn't here. He's on duty, as he so often is, but Paul Wellstone is before us in memory, and Sheila. The two of them gave me the warmest award when I reached the Senate in 1991 in an upset victory that Tom came and campaigned for me in when we were 44 points behind in Pennsylvania. And then Paul, from the moment I got there, was the warmest welcomer and pilot. And then when in 6 months I had to run in that special election, and still most people didn't think I had any chance. Our poll showed 47 points behind. Pat Ewing was in the next campaign, unfortunately not the winning one, and is here. My son was, what? She was in both. In both. Right, well, no one remembers that Carville was in both, the winning and the losing one. They only know he was in my winning one. So Pat was in both. My son was chair of both. One reason Dan Wofford and I are committed to raising as much money as we can possibly raise for 21st Century Democrats is we saw what they could do when Dan was running for Congress. And you've just seen what 21st Century did for these leaders in action. So I give my World War II Army Air Corps rusty salute to 21st Century Democrats and hope that everyone here will try to raise money, because Congress Chairman Conyers is right, there's electricity in the air. I would put it in a different way. The ground under us is shaking. Don't get worried. The building looks really strong and good, but the ground underneath us is shaking. When, for the first time, I think in our history of asking the question, are we on the right track or the wrong track? It's over 80% are saying we're on the wrong track in the polls. I agree with them when they reflect what I sense among the people anyway. 80% in the polls now say this country's on the wrong track at home and abroad. And that's the ground that's shaking under us. If we then know how to make use of it and lead to a new Democratic administration with a Congress that can carry through the kind of change we need in this country. So I'm glad to see that some of us 20th Century Democrats are transforming ourselves into 21st Century Democrats, like Jim Scheibel. Jim and I and David Cohen and John Gompertz and others that I've worked with. And Mary Harris, who ran my office in Philadelphia when I was a senator, and others that my heart is warming to see. We know that this is a moment when what 21st century Democrats are doing is what this country needs. Long time ago, the wisest man I knew said to me, for the 20th century, we must be more inventive if we're going to do our duty. And long ago in that 20th century, some people started what is now 21st Century Democrats. And this leadership of the 21st Century Democrats now is being inventive with a new plan of action which needs the maximum investment that we can make in it. And also the good book says, hold fast to that which is good. And one of the best things in American political action is the progressive forces coming together in a creative program such as 21st Century Democrats. Now, may I do my real duty here, which was to give the Paul and Sheila Wellstone Award to a wonderful colleague of ours. Paul, may I just give a warm memory of Paul, the night when still most people thought I had no chance to win, without telling anyone, Paul Wellstone from Minnesota, where my wife was, and maybe it had something to do with the great progressive tradition of Minnesota, and I took my wife out of Minnesota for 48 years, but I couldn't take Minnesota out of hers. Paul suddenly appeared knocking on the door of our suite that night, and we had no idea yet, for any assurance of it, that we were going to win. And there he appeared at the door, and he said, I just couldn't just watch on television. I had to go and get on the train and come up here to be with you. And so in that sense, he is with us today as I give the 2008 Paul and Sheila Wellstone Award to Katy Gall. Katy, join me up here. Now, Katy began her career with ACORN as an organizer intern in 2000. Now, that was after my time, but I do remember ACORN fairly well. They gave me a rough time on occasion, as they should have, and she started very early, 8 years ago, with the Living Wage Research Center. She helped develop a campus wage website after graduating from Johns Hopkins University. She went to work as a lead organizer in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, where I've been for a bit of campaigning in the last 5-6 weeks, not just in that county, but back home in Pennsylvania. She culminated her work in cleanup of neighborhood eyesores. She's been the head organizer for ACORN, Ohio, since July of 2003. Her leadership of the Living Wage Campaign ballot initiative in 2006 is one of the reasons Katy Gall receives the award tonight. She's an exceptional political organizer and walks in the footsteps of Paul and Sheila. She consistently delivers results for her community and does everything with style, grace, and a sense of humor. Katy.
Thank you, Katy.
Thanks, Mark.
Here you go.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to say thank you to the 21st Century Democrats, and just really briefly, so it was 8 years ago in Baltimore that I decided I wanted to be an organizer when I, in a row house in West Baltimore, met a woman who just really wanted the giant pile of trash cleaned up out of the alley in back of her house. And I think that community organizing like ACORN does, like 21st Century Democrats does, just going out and listening to people gives us a vehicle to hear that when people say, I want the trash cleaned up, or I want to make more than $5.15 an hour, or I want somebody to pay my medical bills because I don't have $20,000, that they're actually expressing a really deep wish for a way to improve our society and to improve the world, and that people aren't always going to say, you know, put things in the terms that that describe some big, gigantic sea change in our society, but when we listen to them and we hear people saying the very basic and simple things, we'll hear the message that we need to take with us. And I want to register to vote is another big one that obviously folks are hearing all over in Ohio, and that the candidates of the 21st Century Democrats support are able to listen to the people when they say that they want these most basic things for their lives. And so I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really, really honored to receive this award, because everything that I've heard people express here tonight in terms of the values that they stand for, the woman who 8 years ago in West Baltimore inspired me to be an organizer would absolutely agree with every single one of those things. So thank you very, very much.